on about maybe $1 million or $2 million, and that will be Marquese Chriss, who's worth over $3 million. So him, I will rank a 5 on how likely I believe he is to be traded.
I'm going to give him a 1. I don't think that any team would want to take on Marquese Chriss.
All right. Moving on to, this is the exciting one. Now we're moving on to the Pelicans, followed by the Grizzlies. For the Pelicans, Julius Randle. How likely do you think Julius Randle is to be traded?
I would argue about an 8. He has value. He has a contract that has a team option for the next year. So I think
no, it's not a team option; it's a player option.
Well, anyway, it's still it's decent contract. So I'm gonna put it at an 8 because I do feel like Julius Randle can contribute to a team that's in the playoff hunt, and New Orleans would be dumb not to trade him.
Well, I definitely agree with you that they should trade him. The only problem I had with Julius Randle is coming up with teams. Because again, like I've mentioned this before, he's on a contract right now worth about $8.8 million. Any team who trades for him will have his non-bird rights, meaning that they could only resign him for up to 120% of his salary this year, which 120% of 8.8 is not high. It's essentially less than 10 million. So I think he's definitely worth more than that, and he's going to demand more than that. So any team trading for him will need to have salary cap space this summer in order to re-sign him if they want him. Not many teams have that, and plus the fact that he doesn't stretch the floor makes him a little less likely. So you gave him an 8, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I will give him a 5. I will give him a 5, and I think I'm pushing it here anyway. But moving on to the next player, Nikola Mirotic. Easy, this is my first 10. I think he's as good as gone. Way too in command. Way too much reasons for the Pelicans to trade him. I think he's as good as gone. What do you think?
I'm going to give him a 9. I do also think that he can be traded. A very similar argument to the Randle argument, except that his contract is expiring.
Correct, yes. But that's the other reason I should mention that any team trading for him will have his bird rights. So a team like San Antonio, for example, could trade for him and will not need salary cap space to re-sign him. And that's another reason why I'm giving him a 10. I'm glad you brought that up. So moving on to Anthony Davis. Here's the huge one, Anthony Davis. How likely do you think Anthony Davis is to be traded?
I have to think it's going to be about it should be a 0, so I'm going to give it a 2, just because I can see New Orleans being, persuaded by the Lakers. But other than that, I think, the smart move would be to wait it out. So I will give it a 2.
Okay, yeah, I'm giving it a 1. I think there's barely any chance he gets traded. I don't know. I think this might be one of those things that really surprises us and they strike a deal. I think if they do strike a deal with anyone at the deadline, it is the Lakers. But if the Lakers don't give them the offer that they like, any offer that they like, and really sweep them off their feet, I think they'll wait. They'll be patient to the summer, see which other teams get interested in him, and see what other trade offers other teams make. But I don't think they'll be in a rush with this unless they feel the pressure to trade him to LA. So, which I don't think is likely. So moving on, Jrue Holiday. I added him on this list. I regret it a little bit now. I have him at a 0. I think they definitely should look to trade him, but I think they should wait till the summer to do it. And they'll be able to get a lot of value for him. If they do this rebuild right, they'll be in good shape real quick. What do you think here?
I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to give it a 1. And the only reason I'm going to give it a 1 because I think a team can come out and give you a package that might not be there in the summer because they might want Jrue Holiday for this year's playoff run. So that's the only reason I'm going to give it a 1, because I do think if a team is going to trade for him, they should want to trade for him right now.
Of course, yes. I think that will definitely be there, but I think they still want to put on a little bit of a facade that, hey, look, we are a team that's trying to win. Take us serious, please, which I don't know if anyone will anymore, but it is what it is. Okay, here we go. Mike Conley from Memphis. You're up.
I'm going to put it at a 0. I don't think there's anyone. I just don't see the Memphis Grizzlies trading him, and I thought Indiana was a perfect suitor. But I don't think like Utah being the other team would put up whatever they believe is what's gonna get the Memphis to make this trade.
Yeah, I will go with a 1 right now. I think if Oladipo hadn't injured himself, I think I would have given this a 3, because I think the only 2 teams really serious for him now are Utah and Pacers would have been, but I don't think they strike a deal with Utah before the deadline, so I will go with a 1. And again, I would have gone a little higher had Indiana still been in. I think they would have tried hard to acquire either him or Drew Holiday, really offer up whatever they can. I don't think they would have the assets to get Drew Holiday just because he's a little younger than Conley, but I think they would have been able to strike a deal for Conley. But no need to rush that. Wait till the summer, see how things go. Marc Gasol's our next player. I'm up here for Marc Gasol, and I just don't think Memphis will find the value that they're looking for in Marc Gasol, and they may just screw the pooch. I mean, with Conley, they could afford to be a little more patient just because he's still under contract for 2 more years. With Gasol, they shouldn't be, but they might really screw this up. But I will give this a 2. I think it's a little more likely than Mike Conley. I will give this a 2.
Yeah, I think it's likely. I'm going to actually go a little bit higher. I think it's about a 4 because I can see the Hornets making the trade here, especially with the contracts they have. So I'm going to give this a 4. And it's going to require a little bit less of assets than Mike Conley would from a team.
Yes, I agree with that, actually. It will require less assets. Hopefully the Grizzlies see it that way, too. Hopefully they're not stupid enough to think otherwise, but who knows? Okay, two more Memphis Grizzlies. First one, JaMychal Green. How likely do you think he is to be traded? He's on an expiring contract worth about $8 million. Any team acquire him gets his bird rights, I believe. I'm not 100% sure actually on that.
I'll give it about a 3. I don't think he. I think with a small contract, there could be teams who can go for him. Again, the problem here would be Memphis and seeing if they make the right move.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little higher here. I will give him and our next guy, Garrett Temple, both 5s. I think they're both pretty likely to be traded, at least one of them. I would imagine both. I think if they package both of them together, for example, to Philly for a Wilson Chandler, or even a combination of Markelle Fultz and Muscala, I think they will be able to extract a first-round pick out of a team like the 76ers. If they package them together and maybe even Shelvin Max, somebody else, you can't really. Well, Justin Holiday, yeah, as long as you don't aggregate his contract. So I guess Justin Holiday could be another option if they figure out a way. Perhaps Holiday for Patton. I forgot how much Holiday's contract is worth. I forgot if it's closer to $6 million or closer to $3 million. But regardless, I'm sure they'll figure out a way to make it happen if they want it. But yeah, I will give both of those players a 5.
The next person is Garrett Temple, so I'll give him a 2. I don't know what teams are going to be out there that are going to want to go for him, so I'll give this a 2.
All right, we'll move on to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Where do you have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope?
I'm going to go actually pretty low on this just because I can see GM LeBron being like, I like these veterans around here, so let's keep him. I'm going to give it a 1.
1? Okay, I will go a little higher. I will give this a 3. I think they could figure out a way to find an upgrade perhaps with New York and Wesley Matthews. I think that one might be where they offer maybe a second-round pick. He's a little bit of an upgrade, and I think Caldwell-Pope might be a little bit of a better fit in New York because of his age. If they strike out in free agency, they may look to resigning him. So I think I will give this a 3 for right now. And we can move on to Alonzo Ball. His inclusion on this list is more of a fact that if they're looking to trade away, if they're looking to acquire a superstar, Ball will be included. I don't think that will happen. So with Lonzo Ball, I'm going to give him a 0. I believe I gave Anthony Davis a 1. I don't want to take too much of a risk because I think if he does get traded, it's for him. So he gets a 0 from me. I don't want to take any risk thinking that trade will happen.
I think all the next 3 or 4 Lakers that you have on here, I'm going to give the same number because the only trade I can see them being put into would be to trade for Anthony Davis. So I'm going to give them all a 1.
Okay, you give them all
So that's
ones.
Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and Kyle Kuzma. The only
Yeah.
way they'll be traded is if...
And I combined Kuzma and Hart here because I think if one of them gets traded, the other one doesn't. But I think, again, similar to the situation I said before with Indiana and Joseph and Collison, I think if, like I just said, if one of them gets traded, the other one doesn't. So I have them together here. Ingram, those two players I'm giving a 0 as well. Yeah, I'm going to give all of them a 0. I included them on this list for that reason, but I don't think there's any likeliness it happens. I'm not taking any risks. Moving on to Sacramento and Willie Cauley-Stein. I believe, I'll be up here because you technically went first with Ingram and Kuzma and Hart. Cauley-Stein, I think there's some chance he gets traded simply because I'm not sure if it's only as a part of an upgrade, for example, for a Vucevic, for a Marc Gasol. I believe he will be included just because he is a restricted free agent this summer, and he's a pretty old restricted free agent. I believe he's 25. So I don't know if he's necessarily a part of the Kings' future unless they have no better upgrades. But I think, again, this summer they might have plans to go after a Marc Gasol or a Vucevic with the cap space they have. So I will go with a 2 here. I will give Cauley-Stein a 2. What do you give him?
I'll give him 1. I just don't know who's going to give up anything for him, especially if he is going to be a restricted free agent this year.
Okay. We can move on to Iman Shumpert, and he's on an expiring contract, but he does have some value. He's been playing pretty decent, not a lot. Any chance you think he gets traded?
I mean, Sacramento's still in the race. I'll give it a 1 as well. I don't think they're very high chances.
Yeah, I'm going with a 1 here as well. I think when we're actually touching up on the next 3 players who I have combined here, Randolph, Koufos, and McLemore, all 3. I combined them all because I think those 3 players obviously are not part of the Kings' future. They're all in expiring contracts, and if the Kings do want to take on some additional salary or essentially upgrade their roster with an expensive player, at least one of those players will have to be involved. So, but I don't think those 3 players are separate from Shumpert just because Shumpert actually has some value, and those 3 players really don't. So I think they will be simply salary fillers in a deal. But I think that's actually pretty likely to happen. So I am giving Shumpert a 1, and those players I'm going to go with a 4. I think it's pretty likely that one of them gets traded. I think Sacramento should find a way to use the $11 million they have remaining in salary cap space.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll give it about a 2. I honestly don't really see it happening with just where Sacramento's at and what they could take on.
Okay. Avery Bradley from the Clippers. Any chance he gets traded?
Again, I think they're very low. I mean, obviously, he does have that expiring contract. He just hasn't produced a lot. I mean, he still can play some defense. I was watching a game where he was playing pretty good defense. I'll give it a 1. I don't know what teams would want to get him. And again, Clippers are also still in the playoff race, so they probably don't want to give him to another team that's competing in the West.
Well, I actually see him being more of an upgrade I'm sorry, not an upgrade, but an opportunity for the Clippers to upgrade if they find somebody that they like on the trade market that they could potentially use perhaps their first round. Well, no, I mean, they might not have their first round pick this year, but perhaps use a Jerome Robinson to include him. I'll go a little higher. I'll give it a 2. I think the Clippers will be active. I don't know if they'll necessarily make a trade simply because of the fact that they don't want to jeopardize any part of their future beyond this year, so they might be a little less willing to include a Jerome Robinson in any deal, but I think there is a chance, especially because of the fact that LeBron James is back and they'll be fighting with the Lakers for the 8th seed in the playoffs, essentially. Moving on, Alex Abrines from Oklahoma. I think it's pretty likely he gets traded simply because Oklahoma will look for a way to lower their luxury tax bill at the end of the year. He's worth over, I believe, either close to $5 million or over $5 million. He will be a restricted free agent this summer. He's been struggling real bad. I don't see Oklahoma holding on to him beyond this year. I think essentially they will look for a way to trade him for a player worth about $2.5, $3 million, probably closer to $3 million, save $2 million off of their salary cap and a lot more off their luxury tax bill. Probably include a second round pick, unless you could upgrade for him, unless you could find him find a way to trade him and Patterson together and upgrade. Abrinas, I will give a